All right, let's see how sharp you really are. Today, we're investigating one of the most powerful and most misunderstood phrases in collecting: limited print run. Does limited always mean rare? Does a low number guarantee a high value? And can an edition be limited even when thousands were made? 10 questions, no hints, no second chances. I'll give you the statement. You decide, fact or fiction. Think fast, trust your instincts, and keep score because this one gets tricky. Ready? Let's test your knowledge. Question 1. Here's your first statement. A collectible produced in a limited print run will automatically become valuable. The answer is fiction. This sounds believable, but it's not accurate. A limited supply is only one part of the value equation. Collectors must also want the item. An edition of only 100 copies may remain inexpensive if very few people care about it. Meanwhile, a collectible produced in much larger numbers could command a higher price because thousands of buyers are competing for the available examples. Popularity, cultural significance, condition, authenticity, provenance, and timing can all affect demand. So remember, limited does not automatically mean desirable, and scarcity without demand does not guarantee value. Question 2. Next statement. If a collectible is numbered 25 out of 500, that proves only 500 examples of the item exist. The answer is fiction. The numbering indicates that the item belongs to a stated edition of 500, but that may not represent every related copy that was produced. There could also be artist proofs, printer's proofs, presentation copies, replacement copies, promotional editions, samples, or unnumbered versions. Some products are released in several formats, colors, regions, or packaging variations. Each version may have its own numbering system. That doesn't automatically mean anything improper happened. These additional copies may be a recognized part of the production process. But before treating 25 of 500 as proof that only 500 related items exist, collectors should investigate exactly what the number covers. Question 3. Let's continue. A collectible with a larger original print run can eventually become harder to find than one with a smaller print run. The answer is fact. This is true because the original print run and the surviving population are not the same thing. Imagine that 20,000 copies of an older comic, poster, card, or book were originally produced. Over several decades, many could have been read, damaged, discarded, altered, or destroyed. Now compare that with a modern edition limited to 2,000 copies. If buyers immediately protected those copies, nearly the entire edition might still survive in excellent condition. The older item had the larger print run, but it may now have far fewer collectible quality survivors. That is why serious collectors investigate both original production and estimated survival. Question 4. Pay attention to this one. If a limited edition sells out immediately, its resale price is guaranteed to rise. The answer is fiction. A fast sellout can indicate strong interest, but it does not guarantee lasting collector demand. Some releases sell out because resellers purchase large quantities, automated bots overwhelm the sale, or buyers react to fear of missing out. Once those copies reach the secondary market, there may be more sellers than genuine collectors. Prices can rise briefly and then collapse when the initial excitement fades. A manufacturer might also announce a similar variant, a wider release, or another edition that satisfies part of the demand. A sellout tells you what happened during the original sale. It does not tell you what buyers will be willing to pay next month or 10 years from now. Question 5. We're halfway there. A later reprint automatically destroys the limited status of the original edition. The answer is fiction. A clearly identified reprint does not necessarily add copies to the original limited edition. For example, an original edition may have a distinct date, printing method, signature page, binding, cover design, serial number, or other identifying feature. A later edition can reproduce the same content while remaining a separate collectible release. The original edition is still limited to its original number of copies. However, the reprint may affect demand. Some buyers simply want access to the artwork, story, or design and may choose the more affordable version. Collectors should therefore distinguish between rarity of the physical edition and exclusivity of the underlying content. Question 6. Let's raise the difficulty. Every copy produced in the same limited print run has the same level of rarity. The answer is fiction. Copies from the same general release can have very different levels of availability. A print run might contain standard versions, retailer exclusives, signed copies, chase variants, alternate covers, error copies, or special inserts. Even when the physical design is identical, condition can create another form of scarcity. Thousands of copies may survive, but only a handful might remain in pristine condition. Regional distribution matters too. A version widely available in one country might be extremely difficult to locate somewhere else. So the total print run is only the beginning. Collectors should identify the exact variant, format, condition, and distribution history. Question 7. This one catches people off guard. A collectible can be genuinely scarce and still be difficult to sell. The answer is fact. This is true because scarcity and liquidity are two different things. Scarcity tells us that few examples are available. Liquidity tells us how easily an item can be sold at a realistic price. A highly specialized collectible might have only 50 surviving examples, but perhaps only 20 active collectors want one. A popular collectible with thousands of surviving copies may be easier to sell because it has a large, established buyer base. This is why an asking price is not proof of market value. Completed sales, auction results, frequency of transactions, and the number of serious buyers provide much stronger evidence. Rare does not always mean easy to sell. Question 8. Stay focused. A first edition is always the same thing as a limited edition. The answer is fiction. These terms describe different things. A first edition generally belongs to the earliest published edition of a work. Depending on the category and publishing history, that edition may include one printing or multiple printings. A limited edition has a stated restriction on how many copies will be produced in that particular edition. A first edition can have a very large print run and may never have been marketed as limited. A limited edition can also appear years after the first edition. And a first printing is not always identical to a first edition. The terminology can vary between books, prints, comics, cards, and other collectibles. Collectors should never rely on one impressive-sounding phrase without checking the complete edition information. Question 9. Almost there. A warehouse discovery can make a scarce collectible easier to obtain without changing its original print run. The answer is fact. The number originally produced remains the same, but the number available to buyers can change dramatically. Previously unknown cases may be discovered in a warehouse, former retailer's inventory, publisher's archive, distributor's storage area, or private collection. When those copies enter the market, an item that rarely appeared for sale may suddenly become widely available. This is sometimes called a warehouse find or a discovery hoard. The item's original production figure has not increased. What has changed is the accessible supply, and that can affect prices, especially if buyers had previously assumed that very few copies survived. Question 10. This is the final question, and it's the one that surprises most people. A collectible can be completely truthful in calling itself a limited edition and still not be genuinely scarce. The answer is fact. This is true because limited simply means that production has been restricted to a defined quantity. It does not tell you whether that quantity is small compared with collector demand. An edition limited to 50,000 copies is technically restricted if no more than 50,000 will be produced. But if only 5,000 collectors want it, the item is not scarce in practical market terms. Manufacturers may also create several limited variants, regional editions, retailer exclusives, anniversary versions, or differently packaged releases. Each version may be limited individually while the combined supply remains substantial. The most important question is not simply, is it limited? Ask, limited to how many? Limited in what format? Are other versions available? How many copies survive? How often do they appear for sale? And how many collectors genuinely want one? That is the real lesson behind limited print runs. A number printed on a box, book, card, or certificate can be useful evidence, but it should never replace careful research. All right, how did you do? Drop your score in the comments and tell us, what is the smallest print run in your collection? Be honest. 8 or more? You're ahead of most people. 10 out of 10? You may be harder to fool than the marketing department. Less than that? Now you know what others don't. Hit like, subscribe, and come back for the next Collectiblepedia challenge. Because knowing more is how you stay ahead.